People say you don't know a dream until it's a nightmare. That was my life, or so I thought. I felt affluent with a huge house, a successful business I established from scratch, and Emma, my true partner. I had everything I wanted. Or she was attractive, educated, and intriguing. Recently, everything changed. Emma had changed. I initially blamed work stress or our marriage phases. People lose focus. Yes, life becomes harder. But it wasn't simply habit, she was chilly and aloof. No more late-night chats. We spent time with pals or on mystery work trips that never ended. I tried to ignore it and think everything was okay. However, skepticism hurt like an uncomfortable, persistent itch. Too many details were little. She laughed too much and constantly had her phone down when I asked about her day. Also, business travels. She returned home with the tiny used bag she left. Her fragrance was horrible and lingered. I caught her secretly checking her phone. She looked ashamed and assumed I wasn't watching. Though my stomach wrenched every time, I wasn't ready to face her. Not yet. I played the husband who didn't know what was going on, letting the stress build until I snapped. I made the life-changing decision then. I accompanied her to one of her numerous business meals one night. I convinced myself it would calm me down. To demonstrate my paranoia. I knew deep inside. I was confident what I was going to learn would disprove everything. I was right too. I discreetly followed her. I held the steering wheel with both hands until my knuckles became white. People said she was seeing a client downtown, but her words as she kissed me goodbye told me otherwise. Not even close. Downtown was off her list. Instead, she drove to a secluded non-main road portion of the city. You hide here from people. As she turned, my heart sunk more. I felt prepared for what was going to happen. She approached a quiet, modest eatery with comfy chairs and dark lighting. I watched her enter the home as I struggled for oxygen while parking down the street. I waited with a rushing mind. Some days I felt like everything was a mistake, which was challenging. However, I saw him. Mark. I remembered his name as he stepped out of his car and approached her like he owned her. They were outside, and he kissed her like two joyful people. They laughed and touched each other, making me queasy. From my seat, I watched. I felt a vice on my heart. But something odd happened simultaneously. I was calm, not enraged. It was freezing and terrifying like a hurricane eye. I had a bright bulb moment when I saw them together. They sneaked around behind my back thinking they were savvy, thought they were stronger than me. But I didn't want to be foolish in this narrative. I gave them privacy. Since I would dismantle it, they might enjoy their own world. It would take time. Speed wasn't challenging enough, too thoughtful and nice. I wanted their anguish to be worse than mine. Sitting in the dark, I grinned. Because I knew just how to make them pay. The conversations lingered with me driving home. It was nearly too powerful. The majority of individuals would have surged into the restaurant, challenged them, and maybe thrown blows in rage. I wasn't most. Don't disturb me. I wanted to avoid discussing their treachery or adding insult to pain. My dream was to lead. I wanted my retribution to be lethal, slow, and exact. You can see they didn't know. Emma had forgotten my AITA skills. My business relies on tools most people won't comprehend. My work was good. Rest assured, I was the finest. I would do all I knew to make their life the greatest nightmare. They had to enter first. It was easier than you think. All home networks would be set up by me. Her phone was easy to unlock. After that, I checked her emails, messages, and browser data. It wasn't enough. I requested more. Always have to know where and what they were doing. I set up the covert cameras then. One tiny one in her car and one larger one at the hidden apartment she rented and believed I didn't know about. My search went beyond proof, which was fun. I knew she cheated before. Absolutely not. We didn't plan to capture them acting. Discussing putting them down. Seeing them twist and turn makes you doubt, which grows into a nervous garden. I controlled them once I entered their thoughts. It started lightly with unnamed numbers SMS. Receive weird emails that make you suspicious. Emma would fear I see you or you can't hide forever texts. I would then read Mark's work emails and provide his rivals sensitive information. He lost one business venture after another. He couldn't explain. He couldn't stop it. The nicest part is that they didn't recognize me. Emma became frightened. Every sound made her jump, and she always looked over her shoulder and moved her eyes like someone was pursuing her. Mark was also losing control since he couldn't figure out his business's failure. I just watched their wrath grow throughout the days. This wasn't simply damage, it looked arty. They believed they were in command. They assumed their little double life wouldn't land them in trouble. I played all the strings without their knowing. Retaliation can make individuals doubt reality and doubt themselves. I did it. I gradually eroded their sense of security. Every note, mishap, an inexplicable event, everything worked out. The best thing? They could not identify the perpetrator. Emma gave up most readily. I began small. To express I know your secret, I sent her flowers and presents. When she initially heard it, she laughed and pretended it was nothing, but I could see uncertainty in her eyes. Through her personal email, I sent her terrifying, ambiguous threats. As her worry increased, she fell apart. She slept. Her residence had concealed cameras that showed her pacing the living room at 2 a.m., leaping at every shadow and stream. She kept looking out the window because she feared someone was observing. She constantly checked her rearview mirror because she felt someone was following her. This made me feel pursued, much as when I learned she was fleeing away. Mark arrived. He did it for work. Hitting him in the wallet stung. I began feeding his business opponents confidential information that wrecked every contract he made. Nothing would be returned. Enough to hold him down every time. One day he missed an important transaction, and one of his clients mysteriously pulled out. His business started losing money, and each lost contract lowered his faith. After that, I pressed harder. I knew from my letters to him that his affair with Emma would be disclosed. I gave him exclusive knowledge. I showed him I was observing him even when he tried to conceal. He grew furious and guarded. At work, he fought pals. He felt they wanted to hurt him. The confident man had become a nervous wreck who shouted at coworkers, lost his calm in meetings, and was unmanageable. Too much worry overcame him and Emma. They were meant to be the perfect, peaceful pair. But the fissures were now visible. They fought more and blamed each other for everything. Mark believed Emma was too reckless and leaving hints about their affair, while Emma thought Mark wasn't doing enough to hide it. As expected, they lied to one another. Still, I wasn't done. This was merely the first trick section. Their inner destruction was required, to view the world and each other as evil. I would ultimately force them to fall. The nicest thing was that they didn't recognize me. Mark was preoccupied with saving his faltering firm, while Emma was preoccupied with guilt. They didn't realize that the person they believed they convinced was the one they should watch. More than hurting them was my goal. I wanted them to crumble so severely that they couldn't return. The major ending remained. I nearly shattered them by the time I made the last scene. Emma was anxious, sleepless, and hated the dark. Mark's employment was ruined. He lost business opportunities like sand between his fingers and was losing his image. Their minds were filled with fear, wrath, and worry. The greatest was yet to come. I knew I had to do this publicly. A wonderful item they couldn't leave. At that point, I conceived the annual charity event. Perfect work. Everyone from our group of pals attended. Significant people with significant ideas would be there, dressed to impress, drinking champagne and gushing about their lives. Emma and Mark were expected. They had no choice, they valued their appearance. Making my card was as laborious as my strategy. I issued them various invites because I knew they would come. The couple didn't show up because they were attempting to hide their romance. Emma would behave like a loving wife, and Mark would enter with his well-honed phony charm. It was too simple. Just in time for supper, I dressed up but concealed. I plucked the threads one more time after watching everything behind the veil. The place was lovely. There were laughs, glasses smashing, lights overhead, and the scent of costly perfume from everyone. That didn't worry me. I didn't intend to watch displays. You may see my specific plan. I placed a tiny goodie on each great hall screen. I was giving a lecture to close the evening. Emma and Mark's private texts will startle easily misled people by disclosing their secrets. I included messages and photos of their private conversations. Photos of them in areas they believed would stay secret forever. Her car and apartment had video, simply waiting to be found. I went out with pals in the evening to hide my activities. But I kept my eye on the watch for the gala's energy shift. After that, it occurred. The lights dimmed to commence a charity function. Instead, the finger-pointing evidence danced on displays. The audience gasped. Murmuring started as soon as the video started. Emma and Mark's texts were visible to everyone. They wanted, betrayed, and floated. Picture time. Each was worse than the last, and their actions behind my back were obvious. I didn't need to be nearby to know their reaction. Emma was terrified, shocked, and ashamed by what she witnessed. Mark too. Every significant person he had sought to impress saw his world crumbling. I meticulously prepared this occasion. They should be revealed in a way that damages the most people. A startled quiet followed as everyone turned to gaze at the mortified pair. Emma lost her reputation and status. Was immediately the focus of attention that night, ruining his image. Finally, there was no turning back. It wasn't the last. Emma cried and stormed out as the audience's murmurs became a scream and many took photographs. Mark arrived, but he caused trouble. Though I had one more strike, they were out in the open. My prior day withdrawal of both bank accounts was unknown to them. All the money they believed was concealed. Go away. Sent to my foreign account. Only their bad names and shattered relationships remained. I stole their life and pride. They failed to flee. Not now. I had one more card. While she was scheduling her next appointment with Mark, I changed our house locks. Her belongings were boxed and delivered to Mark's little flat. She lost her luxury life and safety. Her betrayal threw her out of my life, and I out of hers. Regarding Mark. He died quickly and violently. Few persons. There are no sales, hence no money. He lost his career and business. Even though they felt they could live there, their ideal little fantasy world was destroyed. What about me? Glad to see things happen, I faded into the background. Still, I wasn't done. Night was still going, certainly not for me or them. Mark and Emma, my ex-love. The men who wanted to kill me were desperate, ashamed, and broke. I wouldn't stop there. This went beyond murdering them. I wanted them to murder each other until nothing was left. Emma knew where to go. She was broke after losing her home, which she had proudly displayed. She tried to call me. Totally insane. Seek forgiveness. But I left. I observed this tragedy's final act from afar. Let her be afraid and abused at home. Mark's room was her only possession. That cramped, stuffy flat he hired out to disguise their relationship would be her new home. Her new circumstance. Mark, too? He wasn't interested in sharing his space with the lady who had shoved him down. She arrived at his door untidy and with tears in her makeup, which had been immaculate, before he could speak. I imagined the conversation. A mistake. Emma snapped and blamed him fully. She stated he should have been more careful. This would not have happened. Mark felt heartbroken and enraged as he blamed her, admitting she wasn't careful and should have stopped before things got worse. Their lovely little romance ended because they were both upset when their long-building disagreement climaxed. It was inevitable. I expected them to fight when they had nothing left. I knew it from work. Poorly performing partnerships are usually based on falsehoods and greed. I ensured they would annihilate each other as quickly as possible. Seeing them damage themselves wasn't the last blow. Even worse, it wasn't about seizing their money, power, or possessions. The stillness I left them in killed them. I turned around and didn't speak. Not an issue. No explanation needed. Nothing. You see, Emma and Mark have that problem. They like excitement, commotion, and powerful emotions. They expect fighting, screaming, and yelling. However, after you leave, they sit in the mess they produced and evaporate like a ghost. Emma obviously attempted to contact me. People received her emails. She texted me and attempted to find me. But I left. I erased myself from hers when she turned against me, as she did from mine. Only the ruins of her life with Mark and her self-destruction remained. Things didn't improve for Mark. He lost his clients, business, and reputation. Worse than that, the picture he worked so hard on was gone. The lovely, prosperous person everyone liked had become a shadow, a joke, and someone others spoke about behind closed doors. Emma was alone after all. She eventually understood she had wasted her life for a man who couldn't aid her in terrible times. They were no longer welcome. I didn't have to see or listen to their disagreements while they reconstructed their life. The aftermath didn't motivate me to avenge them. It was about accepting that they were always responsible for their actions. Whether they broke up out of rage or fear, their treachery would haunt them. What about me? I persisted. I didn't disappear completely. I was wealthy, well-equipped, and peaceful. Stay calm, I've reclaimed control. Don't worry, I demonstrated they couldn't trick me. As mentioned, they destroyed each other. I could also leave the mess, without shame, grief, and falsehoods. Freed from them, no need to turn. They now knew what they thought. What about me? Just began. I appreciate your support and patience with my YouTube tales. Your enthusiasm and suggestions are highly appreciated. Hope to read more thrilling stories. Good luck.